So good morning and welcome to the webinar on Trisamino Ultra PC as an odor control agent in personal care applications. My name is Debbie Neubauer and I'm the Global Business Manager for Home and Personal Care in Advancion. And yes, I said Advancion. As you may know us as Angus, we have now rebranded to Advancion. So while this logo may look new to you, the products that we have are all too familiar to you. You may know them as great neutralizers, but they're so much more than that. They are truly multifunctional additives, and just how multifunctional we'll share with you today. Today, Heather Dusek, Mani Damdare, and I will share the latest Advancion data set on odor control with you. But first, let's do some housekeeping. If you have questions during this presentation, please post them in the chat section. And so you can find the instructions for posting here. If you click on that chat bubble in the bottom right, select the Q&A function and type in your questions, we will make sure to answer all your questions at the Q&A section at the back end of this webinar. Also, this webinar is recorded and we will share the link with you in an email later this week. At the end of this webinar, we'll also provide you with all the contact information for our regional team members around the globe. And if you have any questions, you are free to contact them directly with anything that you might want to ask. And so now, without further ado, let's get started on the reason why we're all here, and that is to control that pesky odor. Odor control is in the news in many, many different ways. You see it everywhere you go, and in a different format, you can see that odor control is big. The total deodorant market alone is valued at $25 billion, and that's only 5% of the global personal care market. And that small section of deodorants only form a small subset of products that have a need for odor control. Other applications like lotions, cleansers, shampoos, and many others also have a strong need for a proven molecule that controls odor, is safe in use, mild to the skin, and offers that global compliance. And the one that fits the bill perfectly is Trisamino Ultra PC. And so to level set, if you're looking for an odor control agent that is proven to be effective, globally compliant, gentle on the skin, easy to formulate with, you came to the right place. Trisamino Ultra PC is the name of the game, and Heather will now share our latest research on odor control with you. Hey, Heather.
Hello, thank you. My name is Heather Dusek, and I am the personal care account manager here in North America. And I also come from some formulation background, so I actually worked with some of these Advancion, at the time Angus, materials back when I was a formulator. So it's really great to be on this side of it. So getting started, the major findings we're going to share with you today are listed here. We found that Trisamino Ultra PC is an effective odor control agent in a wide range of personal care and household formulations and product forms, things like gels, emulsions, deodorants. And the first part I will share with you is a study we generated, 3 studies, I should say, looking at human sweat odor. 2 of them are a sensory study, and 1 was a quantitative study that I will explain later. But overall, we found that Tris in the 2 to 5% range showed a great efficacy in odor control. So before we get into those specific results, as Debbie mentioned, the Trisamino Ultra PC is not a brand new material, but these results are new. What I like about Tris and what formulators use it in is its utility to really enhance any formulation, really any product form. Things like rheology and application and feel can help build a thick lotion while having a great easy spreadability and sheer thinning. It can improve emulsion properties, so it works in those emulsion type formulations, but it also can help lower CMC in cleansing formulations, meaning that it works alongside surfactants as well to improve cleansing ability of formulations. It does great dispersion stability, things like color cosmetics and sunscreens, and then just overall formulation stability. So it's really a great tool that can help a formulation come together and perform better the way that we want it to as formulators. And then here, that last bullet point there, it can also help with odor neutralization and odor control, which it's just working so hard in your formulation. So it's just great to think about all those multi-functional benefits that one material can give your formulation. So as we said, we are focusing today on Trisamino Ultra PC. It is circled, boxed there in the middle. But listed here are all of our amino alcohols that Advancion offers. The first four on the left are primary amino alcohols, and we have a tertiary amino alcohol. We list their structures up top there, and I find that so interesting and helpful because they're not drastically different from one another, but these small changes in structure really help each perform a little bit differently in formulations. Obviously today, our all-star in odor control is the tromethamine. Um, and the differences there between each material you can see listed in that molecular weight and the pKa. So they will behave slightly differently in each formulation. And right now we'll focus on the odor control benefits of the trisamino. We started with an in vitro study. It was an external independent study where artificial skin was pre-moistened with a synthetic sweat mixture of acidic nature. Then different test formulations were applied, all at the same amount. And these samples were then allowed to equilibrate for a few hours. And the headspace was then collected for sensory and GC analysis. So more specifically, there were 6 different formulas added, which when we get to the result page, I will show you what each of those are. They were applied to the artificial skin, like I said, that had already had that sweat on it. It was allowed to equilibrate. And then we had 2 sensory tests, one with trained panelists, one with untrained panelists. And then we finished with a quantitative study. An electronic nose is our common term for that. But I will share exactly what that is when we get to that section. To start out, we did a malodor assessment using 8 trained panelists. These are people who are trained in evaluating odors, and these are experts at it. The scale over there on the right is what was used, 0 being a not perceptible odor, and 6 being extremely strong. So listed here is our first results. I want you to take a look at the bottom of this bar graph. Sweat was the first formula, our control, and then water was applied, and then a 1% tris in water, 2% tris in water, 5% tris in water, and then finally a 5% tris in an oil and water lotion. I mentioned that it's a great formulation tool, so we obviously had to test it formulated into a complete lotion. Your scale is up there on the left, the neutral to unpleasant, looking at increasing odor intensity. Again, these were our trained panelists, and you could see the results as tris levels increased. They perceived that the odor was less and less intense. Super interestingly, when tris was formulated in doing all those other great things like stabilizing it, thickening it, helping it spread well as applied, it was also working to reduce that odor intensity the most, which I think is so cool. Study, it was a hedonic assessment using 8 untrained panelists. The scale here is slightly different. So a -4 to a +4. -4 is rotten things, you know, a gym bag, whatever your worst smell is, would be your -4. +4 is things like bakery smells, cinnamon rolls, you know, homemade cooking, anything that you perceive to be a very pleasant smell would be a +4. In the middle there are smells that are more indifferent, not really a strong reaction either way. And remember, these were untrained panelists. So people like you and me who have no specific odor or scent evaluation training, bringing in our own perceptions and our own odor preferences into the test. So looking here, we have the same six formulations that were applied, the same six variables, with the sweat on the left, the water, the 1, 2, and then 5% tris just in water, and then that 5% tris in the oil and water lotion. So again, really low bar means they rated it as unpleasant. And as tris was added, we see that the unpleasantness of the odor goes closer and closer to neutral or indifference about the odor. And these untrained panelists really had a very similar trend as the trained panelists in that they found the 2 to 5% tris to be the most effective. And the tris in that oil and water lotion was also extremely effective at reducing the unpleasantness of that odor and bringing it much more into that neutral range. I have mentioned the electronic nose as our common term for our quantitative test. What that is time of flight mass spectrometry. And we thought it was important to use a quantitative test to actually measure the headspace and what these panelists were sniffing and perceiving. So in the table at the bottom right, you see the same six different versions that were tested with the control sweat, the water, the tris at 3 different levels in the water, and then the oil and water solution. That first column there are the different acidic compounds that made up that artificial sweat. Up there at the top, you see the units here, which is why we use this method, because the concentration of these compounds is actually quite low in the ppm range. And what that really means for us is humans can perceive odors at very low concentrations. So odor control is extremely important and extremely personal. Um, and if we look at the color shading here, a little difference in this graph, you'll see that that valeric acid is the numerical value is a little bit lower than the one above it, the isovaleric acid, indicated it had a lower concentration, but that red shade there means that as perceived to be a worse smelling odor. So the shading is really related to perception of how bad that odor is, and the numerical value is the concentration that was measured with our electronic nose. Looking at the results, they very much fall in line with what our panelists perceived. The 2 and 5% tris in water, as well as the 5% tris in the oil and water lotion, had a dramatic reduction in those acidic compounds that were left in the headspace. So the tris amino was actually reducing these acids, so they were no longer detectable in that headspace. And the tris in the oil and water lotion also did a wonderful job of, even though the tris, like I said, was busy in that formulation, helping to stabilize it and just create its formulation structure, it was still able to neutralize these acidic sweat odor compounds. And so what does that mean? You know, when we look at deodorants as probably our first thought, our first example of odor control on humans, and different deodorants that stay away from aluminum and aluminum salts. So we took a little sample from the market to see what people are using for an odor control ingredient when aluminum is not used. And these are all deodorants taken from the European market. And we looked over at the active ingredient. Some of them use fragrance simply to mask that malodor. Some used a starch to sort of just absorb it. And the tris amino, as I showed with that electronic nose, was actually neutralizing those odors. Um, and so it really falls in line with what we see in the market, but with that added benefit of having a great formulation and doing more than masking. It is truly neutralizing those sweat compounds. So moving on from our sweat odors into some odor scavenging, we tested that as well. So for our test design, we looked at a 10% isovaleric and propionic acid, and we looked at the scavenging results for the tris amino. And the tris in this study was added at a 1-to-1 molar basis as those acidic compounds. And then the headspace was analyzed using GCFID. So what that looks like here, that little jar there, bottle on your right, that liquid is the acid, and the trisamino was added to that liquid phase. And then, since we breathe air, the headspace was again analyzed, um, resulting in the graph that we show here. So the before and after is the before and after tris was added, and the bars are measuring the amount of each of those acids as they are there in that compound. And you see that there is a huge reduction when the tris was added of both the isovaleric acid and the propionic acid. Humans also have other types of odors, aldehydes being one of them. They're prevalent in body odors that are not the same as sweat, foot odor, and even wet dogs. We'll actually get to wet dogs right after this section, but right now we're focusing on aldehyde odors that are typical in human odors. We chose two to work with, 2-methylbutanol and propionic aldehyde, as representatives of this class of molecules. There's many different aldehydes on humans that can cause odor. We chose these two to test here. Samples were analyzed using a GCMS, and this was just our first study. We're continuing to work in this area. So what we saw here when tris was added, there was proportional amounts as tris was added, proportional amounts of that aldehyde that was scavenged. So the more tris that was added, the more aldehyde that we were able to scavenge. We're continuing to work on this, but in both these different aldehydes, which are structured slightly differently, the tris performed very well, reducing the amount of aldehyde that was able to be smelled and detected. So overall, tris did a great job of scavenging these odors. And this really applies to a wide range of products. I did mention deodorant already, but there's also things like laundry and home care. Maybe I take my shirt off, it still smells. I want to get that smell out. And we're continuing to look in this area. Like I said, we did the sweat studies, looking at the aldehyde, the odor scavenging. So we're continuing to research what else can tris do in the realm of odor control. We're also looking at areas such as fragrance release, when we want a certain scent to linger, and what can that look like? How can tris help? Results are ongoing, so stay tuned. We can share those once they're available. I mentioned pet odor control. Many of us have a furry friend. I do, and I love her, but I do not want to smell her. So we looked at trisamino as an odor control agent for pet odor. We did a few different studies, and the trisamino here was tested at 5%, and it showed great results. How we tested it is we took 6 different dogs of different breeds where they had gone 15 days without a bath at least. And then we cut their hair and sampled it, mixed all the samples together so that each of our test samples was uniform. And then we sprayed the dog hair, with our test material for 15 sprays, allowed to dry at room temp. So often we think of wet dog odor as when they're wet. We applied this when they were wet and then allowed it to dry and evaluated it after it had dried for 3 hours. And this test was run in triplicate. Here's our basic formula that we used. Again, it's important to note that tris can participate well and perform in a finished formulation. This was a simple spray that was created. If you look, there is a control where the tris was not included, but the other components obviously were there in that spray. And then the spray containing the trisamino Ultra PC at 5%. So looking at the odor concentration here, we have untreated versus treated with the trisamino at the 5%. And we saw a huge, more than half, reduction in the odor concentration that was observed when the trisamino containing spray was added. So the actual percentage is 56%, which is a huge reduction in odor concentration. We also did a hedonic study. And again, that scale for you at that right, that negative, very unpleasant, Maybe it's maybe what dog is your unpleasant. Maybe it's, my son's football uniform. Um, Looking up to extremely pleasant, your favorite thing to smell. You could smell it all day and be happy, with indifference being right there in the middle again. So here we have the untreated dog hair, the dirty dog hair that was collected, the control spray, which was that spray that did not contain the trisamino ultra PC, and then the spray that did contain the tris at 5%. And you can see the results here. Compared to the untreated, the trisamino did a fantastic job of bringing that dirty dog smell up into that neutral zone, in that -1 to 1 zone. So just like we saw with the human odors, the sweat odors, and the scavenging of the aldehyde odors, here the trisamino ultra PC was able to perform on a different type of smell, the dog smell, and give great results. So overall, the trisamino ultra PC is very effective in reducing pet odor concentration and the perception of that pet odor. The best results we found was when the trisamino ultra PC was added at 5%. And this can really be incorporated into a wide range of products. Pet care doesn't have to just be shampoo. It could be a treatment spray. It could be a cleanser. It could be, something that treats like the dog bed, for example. Maybe the dog bed smells, or your couch, your sofa after the dog has laid on there. So there's just many different areas where the Trisamino Ultra PC can help reduce that odor, because the tris doesn't care where the odor is. As long as the odor is there, the tris will work to scavenge it and reduce that smell. So the tris amino is really well suited for all sorts of pet care applications. Like Debbie mentioned, and we'll get into in more detail in a moment, it's also extremely mild and safe.
All right. Thanks, Heather. So you heard Heather talk about you know, trisamino and odor control and odor scavenging, but there's so much more to trisamino than those two properties. Trisamino PC offers a consistent balance of properties, and this chart depicts the Trisamino Ultra PC customer testimonials from around the globe. And as you can see here, customers tout Trisamino's great emulsion stability, improved rheology, as well as great skin tolerance and moisture retention. Earlier, when I mentioned that Tris provides so much more than mere neutralization, I really meant it, and so did our customers. Tris provides fragrance stabilization and offers a unique transparent appearance, which is really valuable when you're making those white finished formulations. As you can see here as well, Tris outperforms sodium hydroxide, TEA, and even our AMP in many functionalities. All set, there's so much more to Tris than odor control. Trisamino Ultra PC is the multifunctional additive of choice for the personal care market. And as I mentioned before, this is really a way to test all those functionalities of Trisamino Ultra PC. So about Advancion. As I mentioned, you may know us as Angus, but earlier this month we rebranded to Advancion, and so you might have to get used to the name a little bit, but the products are still the same. When you look at our map and see where we're active, we are a global producer of high purity, high performance, and multifunctional specialty ingredients. We offer unique production expertise that spans well over 80 years. And with our extensive track record of innovation, we have taken a leadership position in the many markets that we serve, including the personal care market. We offer security of supply through 2 manufacturing locations, one in Ippenburen, Germany, and one in Sterlington, Louisiana. And as always, all Advancion Ultra PC grades are compliant with the recent cosmetic directives and requirements, including the ones listed here. We do our utmost to make sure that all our products meet all the stringent regulations available in the market today. And on top of that, our products are fragrance-free, gluten-free, paraben-free, sulfate-free, phthalate and BPA-free, non-GMO, even vegan, and free of any added preservatives. But from a corporate perspective, we'll meet all your sustainability needs as well. Not only is Trisamino Ultra PC biodegradable and extremely suitable for your clean beauty formulations, it Advancion is an EcoVadis Gold rated company as well. So today we shared a lot of information with you. We had some key findings on odor control and how Tris Ultra PC can be beneficial to your formulation. With a 2 to 5% usage range, you show great efficacy in controlling not only odor or odor scavenging, but you also are able to use this in a clean beauty formulation due to its biodegradability. Add to that all the other benefits that we mentioned earlier, and Trisamino Ultra PC truly is that multifunctional, high-performance additive that can be used in many different product formats. As a reminder, this is that slide Heather showed earlier. This is the Advancion product slate for personal care. You can see the Trisamino Ultra PC in the middle is in great company with all our other products. So we have our AMP Ultra PC in 3 different formats, our AMPD, our DL2AP, and then our DMAMP. All these multifunctional amino alcohols are great in terms of promoting stability in your formulation, and each offers some additional different benefits for different applications. So if you need any help in the selection process for any of these multifunctional amino alcohols, just let us know. We're here to help. We can guide you in the right direction, and provide you with the information that you need for your specific formulation. And then Q&A. If we have any Q&A, if you need a reminder, this is how you add your questions. And we are here to answer any of those questions should they come around. Scott, did we have any questions?
Hey, Debbie, we've got a couple. First one is, are there other Advancion molecules that can be used in my formulations to neutralize or control odors?
Money, you're on mute. Still.
Mani is trying to figure out the headset. I could jump in and answer that one. Our materials are all multifunctional amino alcohols, and they do perform very well in a range of formulations. What we found is really the best one here for odor control is the Trisamino Ultra PC. You might get some benefit from the other materials, but Tris is really your go-to if odor control is your goal, while still providing those other formulation benefits that we went through.
Another one is human odor different than pet odors, and do I need to formulate differently if I am trying to target those different odor sources?
I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So human odor is somewhat different than pet odor, and it is actually different in a couple of key areas. So human odor typically consists of multiple different actives, if you will. So there is obviously a lot of water, different salts in our sweat. I mean, that's how our body cools down by sweating, right? There are also a lot of electrolytes. And along with that, there are some very small amount actives, odorous actives that are present in human sweat. Those actives are different in humans and pets, but they are the same functional types, functional groups, chemical functional groups for the most cases. So these are sometimes, like for human odors, these are more aldehydes, smaller chain aldehydes that smell pretty acrid. And for dogs, these are different types of aldehydes, but they are functionally the same yet different molecules. And trisamino will work on scavenging either of those actives equally well.
Okay, great. No further questions at this time.
All right. Well, that leaves us to showing our contact information to you. So these are our teams around the globe. Their email addresses are listed, as are ours. So please feel free to email us directly with any question that you may have. If you think of any now, just send us an email. We'll answer all those questions for you. And with that said, I'll leave this up a little bit longer. But with that said, we come to the conclusion of our webinar. We thank you for joining us today and learning about Trisamino Ultra PC. And we will send you the presentation. We will send you the link to the webinar recording, and we'll send you some links to the additional information about Trisamino. So thank you so much. Goodbye.